Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we talk about lupin. So let's go. I want to start by saying this video is definitely not a plant profile on the lupin plant. It's more of just a brief discussion about the lupin plant and where I have it placed in my yard, how I got it to grow, and I want to show you some tips and tricks that have worked for me. And then I'll also show you some lupin that I winter sowed and what I plan on doing with them next. There are certain plants out there that I have found can be a little tricky to grow. I like to call them my diva plants. And well, lupin definitely falls into that category. Now, I don't know a ton about lupin, but I did do some research. And what I found is there are biennial lupin, there are perennial lupins. That typically lupins are short-lived, so it's important for you to allow them to drop their seeds so that you have a succession of lupin growing every year. But one thing that I did find is that lupin likes cool weather. I live in New Hampshire, zone 5B, and I know when I've gone to Canada, I've seen a ton of lupin up there. So I guess it makes sense that lupin will do really well in these cooler climates. So if you live somewhere where it's terribly hot and you struggle with getting lupin to grow, that might be one reason why. And the other big thing that I found was when it comes to lupin plants, they do not like to have their roots disturbed. They have a long taproot. And what that means is it's not just like a small little root that you dig up and you move around. It's actually a long root, which they call a taproot. And that makes it very tricky to move a plant like this. Lupin's not the only plant that has a long taproot. There are other plants out there, but this is one of many plants where it is very finicky. It doesn't, once you plant it, you want to keep it there. You don't want to keep moving it year after year. So if you want to grow lupin and you have the right growing conditions to grow it, what I recommend is you start it from seed. But when you start it from seed, you get it transplanted and moved when it's a nice small plant and you don't disturb the roots. You want to make sure you're not taking all the soil off the roots. You want to keep most of the soil intact. And then another option is to just scatter seeds in an area of your garden where you want the plant to grow and let it go through that whole process during the winter months called winter stratification or cold stratification. So it gets that nice cold period. And another thing that I've never done before, but that I researched and found was that when it comes to the seed, because it's a very hard shell to the seed, you want to make sure that you're doing what's called scarification. And that means nicking the seed. So you can take the seed and you can basically rub it against a file to nick it a little bit. I've never done that, but I did read that that helps. And another thing that I found that helps when it comes to the seed and softening up that coat is soaking the seed at a minimum for 24 hours. But if it were me, I would go for the 36 hours. You just put it in a bowl of water or a jar of water and let the seeds soak for, I would say, 36 hours. And then after you've soaked the seeds, again, then you can put them, basically scatter them on the ground somewhere. And definitely this year and even this winter, I'm going to be doing a lot of different experiments when it comes to getting lupin to grow, because it's a goal of mine. I want to master this plant, and I want you to master this plant, because I've heard so many people complain that they can't grow lupin in their yard. And I mean, look how beautiful the plant is. And I will be taking you in and I will show you the lupin plants that I have in my yard. I don't have a lot, but I can tell you I've never bought my lupin plants. So they were plants that I started from seed, and they were plants that I started from seed using the winter sowing process. Now these plants, I have 3 plants here. I am on the west side of my house. And when I did a little bit of research, I found that it's better to have your plants on the north or the northeast side of your house. They like it cool. They don't like to be in the hot, sunniest part of your yard. But it'll be interesting to see how they do here. Again, I live in zone 5B. It's, it stays generally cool here. There is drip irrigation at the base of these plants. So I will definitely report back to you later this year to see how these plants are doing. It'll be interesting. Will they go dormant? Will they stay nice and fresh during the whole year? And the other thing that I found that's very important is it's really important to keep deadheading your plant, because this is one of many perennials out there that if as soon as the blossom's gone by, and if you're not planning on collecting the seeds, you want to cut the stalk down where the blossom was on, and that will force the plant to rebloom, to send more flushes of blossoms. So I've never done that with this plant, but I will definitely do that this year. In fact, this is only the first year that this particular plant will be blooming for me because I just added these plants in this bed last year. I don't know the color, so we'll find out together what color these plants are, and I don't know the variety. So what we're going to do now, though, is I'm going to take you in for a closer look at the lupin that I have on the west side of my house. And after that, I'll take you on the south side of my house, and I'll show you the lupin that I have over there. And you can see, based on the number of stems in there, that this is a fairly large plant. It looks very happy. It looks very healthy. It's early May, so it should be blooming hopefully within the next month. In fact, you can see right there, there's one bud. Right there is another bud. And it's just generally very, very happy in this space. And that's a good indicator. That at least tells me, okay, so if it's happy here, then that tells me I can just grow more lupin in this particular area of my yard. And this area is what I call the bay window bed. And right near this lupin, together we planted a few more lupin plants. You can see there's a smaller one right there, and then there's another small one right over here. And with this smaller one, if you just barely move the leaf over, you can see that it has a bud. And at the base of this plant, it looks like there's another baby plant, which I will not touch. I might as well just leave it there. So I'm very happy that I have 3 lupin plants in this bed here. For perspective purposes, I just want to show you the reason that I call this the bay window bed clearly is because there's a bay window there. And I do have my septic tank over in this area over here, but it's okay. I've been planting plants around there, and if I have to have the septic tank pumped, it will work. It'll be fine. So you can see though, there's the larger lupin is over there, and then the smaller ones are at the base around it. My goal for this year is to try or attempt to turn this bed into more of a cottage garden. So I think just having the lupin there is a great start. We are now on the south side of my house, and I like to call this flower bed my side walkway bed. This bed gets a lot of sun, and I try to jam pack it with flowers because I don't have a lot of areas in my yard that get full sun. I have a lupin plant that is right here, and in fact, that did bloom for me last year. And not only that, I let it go to seed and drop its seeds at the base. I'm going to take you in for a closer look and show you what's there. So even though this plant bloomed for me last year, it's still pretty small actually. But at the base, you can see that there is a bud. So this plant will bloom for us as well this year. And I can't wait to show you in another video what it looks like. I was looking at the base of the plant, and there are a bunch of little seedlings. So we have 1, 2, 3. And as we move this way, there's one over here. So that makes 4. And then as we go this way, there's one over there. That's 5. And right near that, there's another one over there. That makes 6. And as we go towards my bloodroot, right in there, there is one tucked in there. That's 7. There might be others, but there are at least 7 lupin seedlings in here, which is very, very cool. We're still on the south side of my house, and this is my backyard plant nursery where I sell plants. Isn't it looking great this time of year? Right down in there were some lupins that were gifted to me, little seedlings, and I potted them up immediately. Let me show you what they look like. And it's actually a sad sight. All of these little pots right here had tiny little lupin seedlings that I received last year. And unfortunately, the only one that survived was this one. And I think I know why. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But before we do, let's go over to our winter sown milk jugs, and I'll show you the lupin that I have over there. We're still on the south side of my house, and I know this looks like an eyesore. These are milk jugs, and inside of them are all different types of perennials that I winter sowed and basically started them from seed. And this row right here was supposed to be plants that had not germinated yet, but I've been checking them, and actually there's quite a bit of germination in a lot of these milk jugs. And then all the milk jugs over there had germination in them. But I specifically want to show you the lupin. So I'm going to pull them out and then I'm going to show you what they look like. Look at all the beautiful lupin seedlings in here. They are very happy. They look very healthy. And I don't know how many are here, but one day I'll tell you once I start pricking them out. Let me keep showing you the other milk jugs. So this is milk jug number 1. I think I planted a lot less seeds in this milk jug. And this one says purple. The first one I showed you said mix. So you can see though that they all look very good and they're happy as well. By the way, my label says I winter sowed these on December 30th. And again, it's early May and they are ready to come out of their containers. And I do have videos showing you how to winter sow. I'll put a link to those videos down below. So here are some more lupin. And it doesn't say if they're purple or mixed, but honestly, it doesn't matter. And then here's my 4th milk jug. I only did 4. And this one says it is a white lupin. Now, I want to point out, there still looks like one that's sprouting. And that's important when you're doing winter sowing. You don't want to just empty everything out all the time because there sometimes are seeds that maybe they were planted a little bit deeper, not on purpose, and they might be slow to germinate. So just keep that in mind. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to together pick out 1 or 2 lupin seedlings, and I just want to talk a little bit about that. So we're sitting on my porch right now, and I just kind of wanted to show you my thought process of what I want to do next with these seedlings. So I have some pots here, and they are just recycled pots. And what I like about them is that they're tall. And since lupin have taproot, I want to make sure that I'm planting them in a taller pot so that the roots can still form. Now, you could absolutely take them out of the milk jug or container or pot that you have and plant them directly out in your landscape. However, I don't know exactly where I want to place my lupin plants. Because they don't like to be moved around a lot, I don't want to just put them in the ground and then have to move them. So I'd rather give them a chance to grow bigger, get a nice bigger root, but in a bigger pot like this. And then hopefully sometime this summer or fall, I can then take them out of these pots and put them out in my landscape. I have potting mix here, so I'm just going to put them with potting mix. I recommend that. You don't want to use something too heavy. Lupin likes a nice fluffy soil. So potting mix I think is perfect for this type of situation. And I'm not going to skimp. I'm going to only be putting 1 lupin per pot. The plant will look tiny in such a big pot, and that is totally fine. You want the plant to put its energy into the roots. You want the roots to get taller, but you don't want to overcrowd the plants. And then once we get them potted up, we'll make sure we give them a drink of water. So I figure I'll take you in for a closer look. Now, again, this is all an experiment for me because I showed you in my plant nursery. I tried doing this last year and only 1 plant survived. And I think I know where I went wrong. And I promised I would tell you. Okay, so I think this is where I went wrong. When I received those from my friend, they were all in a nice big pot, like a whole bunch of seedlings in 1 big pot. And I dumped them out and I exposed all their roots. I didn't take the soil with them carefully, scooping a little bit of a plant with the soil at a time and then potting them up. And that is, I believe, the secret is and based on what I've read, what I've researched, you want to make sure you're not disturbing those roots. So I grabbed a spoon and we're going to be scooping the plants out very carefully, try to get under the roots with the soil and scoop the plants out. And what we'll do is then we'll tuck those plants into these pots. So I'm going to take you in for a closer look and I'm going to show you what my process is. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the potting mix to this container. And let's start with just trying to make kind of a hole in the center here where we can then put our lupin seedling. And I think we're going to start with an easy one. I don't want to start in this corner here. I would be disturbing all of these plants. So we're going to start with this one over here because it's kind of one off by itself. I'm going to use my spoon. And I just want to try to get under the plant the best that I can. And look, even in trying to do so, I did disturb the roots a little. That's okay. I mean, it's going to happen, right? We tried. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this potted up. Now, just like anything, when it comes to potting up a plant, though, you want to try to give it the best chance of survival. I absolutely will not be putting this out in the sun. I mean, it's going through a lot of stress right now, what we're doing to this poor little seedling. These will be on my porch where it's still outside, but it's more shaded under my porch. So they're a little protected, I guess is what I'm saying. And it's good for me to do this process with you because, you know, as much as you try to scoop it out and get as much of the soil as you can, that might not be perfect. It might not happen. But now that the plant is in here, I imagine it's going to be happier, hopefully. And I want it to now get a bigger root system. And the goal is when it comes time to plant this, I want to plant all of this into a hole that I dig up. I don't want to take it apart. I don't want to disturb the roots. So we will be, just kind of babying these plants, making sure they get some water and get a little bit of sun, but not too much sun on the porch. And when the time is right, I can move them down to my plant nursery, but not quite yet. Okay, let's try to do another one. I have to say though, easier said than done with using the spoon method. I mean, I'm really trying, but the roots are, in there quite a bit in the milk jug. So hopefully, I think the thing is these plants are still quite small, right? They basically have their cotyledons, which are their first set of leaves, and then they have their first set of true leaves. And that's, in my opinion, the best time to be doing this. You don't want them to get any bigger than this. And that's what it looks like. You can see again, this is a big pot for such a little seedling, but that's good. That's what we want to do. I'll be sure to get a bunch of plant labels and label these because I want to make sure I label that these are the white ones. And naturally, I will keep you posted on not only the lupin that are out in my landscape and show you how pretty they are when they're blooming, but I'll also show you how these guys are looking and how I'm caring for them. And then eventually, when it comes time to put them out in the landscape, I'll show you that. And then this late fall or whenever the plants decide to go to seed, I'll show you my process for collecting the seeds. But before that, it'll be important to deadhead the plant because I want to enjoy those blooms. To be honest with you, I didn't know that you could deadhead the lupin and it'll bloom for you again. So that's good to know. Many perennials do that, and then many perennials don't do that. So it's more of just educating ourselves on which perennials can you deadhead for extra blooms. And lupin, I guess, is one of them. Cute little plant. When I go to the nurseries and I see certain plants like lavender and lupin and delphinium, and they sell one plant at a time, and actually even foxglove, and they're so expensive when you just buy one plant. And I often wonder why. Why are they so expensive? And it just seems like certain plants that are popular, that especially that are very hard to grow on your own from seed, those are the plants that tend to be more expensive. And so I know, like, as a backyard gardener, I want to save money and I want to grow my own. I don't want to pay that kind of money. See, that's a nice big clump right there. It's keeping its soil on. Um, so I've tried for years to grow lupin from seed. And I think that's where I always went wrong. I never scarified it, which means, you know, um, nicked it. I never did that. And still, I would get some to germinate, but I always would lose them pretty much at this stage right here. And I think it's because I didn't get enough soil on the roots. And then on top of it, I would take it and just put it out in the elements in my yard. And I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm challenging myself to um, do better when it comes to lupin. And then I can teach and explain my process and what works for me. But I would love to hear from you. Have you had luck with lupin? And what's worked for you? I imagine if I do hear from a lot of you, I imagine the process that's going to be most popular will either be winter sowing or taking the seeds and just scattering them outside. And I think the question I'm asking it's not just the germinating part, it's the transplanting part. How have you been successful with a plant that's germinated and then you've moved it? You know, what's the success? Because that's where I think a lot of people lose their plants. So I'd love to hear from you and know what was your secret. I'm guessing, though, part of the secret is making sure the plant is small enough. A young little seedling like this, part of it is doing it not when it's like super sunny out. Making sure you give it a lot of water and then just leaving it alone. But I'd love to hear from you. Please drop a comment below. And that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you what I was working on today. I really, really felt passionately about talking about lupin because it's a plant that so many people love and struggle with. It's also a plant in my backyard plant nursery a lot of people ask me about and want to buy. So I'd love to be able to provide that over time in my nursery. So if you have any questions, as always, drop them below. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.